Hey everybody, today I want to talk about a feature that's requested quite a bit with ServiceNow BCM that really isn't available out of box, but is absolutely available to set up. So what am I talking about specifically? Well, when we go to the BCM workspace, you'll see that there are a number of BIAs that you can have available at the dashboard. But what happens is that the other users who also have BIAs, or anyone with access to the workspace, can see each other's BIA. Well, this becomes a problem, especially if you're servicing multiple agencies or clients that don't need to have their BIAs mixed together. Typically, if you are servicing multiple clients in the same instance, you have that domain separation. But let's say in this example, you don't, right? Which is actually surprisingly common. Additionally, right, you just may have an organization policy that requires only those explicitly called out to be able to see those BIAs, right? And it could just be a security issue. So with all that said, I want to go ahead and show you a quick trick to get this all set up and what you can do to manipulate it and update it as needed. Starting off, I want to show you why this issue is happening. And it comes from a security control, so an ACL, where the explicit condition identifies BIA viewer as a possible role that you could have to be able to see these BIA records. The problem here is that in all likelihood, you're using a role that contains this role, right? So you're likely using BCM Planner or a different role, and that is overriding the security rules that you would want to use typically for BIA. So how do we fix this? Well, a simple solution requires really two steps. And these two steps will actually be contained in an update set that you can download at any point for your organization if you'd like. I'll show you how to do that. But the first step is to remove the role from the ACL, right? I'll do that. And then the second step is to go into the other ACL where the rules are more explicit. I'll show you where that is. One shortcut I like to use is type in detail as a system admin, go to access role detail view. Then you have to set up the columns in a certain way, but I have mine saying name, which is table name, ACL name essentially, and role name. And then we just type in the name of the table, which in our case is BIA analysis. And we only care about the read role, right? And then we'll go over here into this ACL, the one that identifies planner. So what's really good about this ACL is it has a lot of the roles or the criteria already explicitly identified. So the first thing you want to do is add the BIA viewer to this role, to the required roles. So you can have either planner or viewer. And then we'll go ahead and add it in because this is how it starts out of box. It says, hey, as a BIA owner, if I'm on this record and I have either of these roles, I should be able to see the BIA. Or if I'm part of the BCM lead, it's really point and click, which is really nice. Or if I'm identified as a contributor. Really point and click. So if someone tries to tell you it takes 8 hours to implement this feature, it's because they don't know, which is fine. That's why they're making this video. It's very common. Great. So with all that in mind, you might expect this feature to work correctly. And I'll show you what happens. So as a BCM user, so someone with the BCM planner role, you'd expect for the constraints to work correctly. And we are seeing that, right? We do see that they are removing access. But what we're also seeing is that these tiles aren't showing us the correct counts. So this is the second part to everything. So we updated the security rules, so the actual data is working correctly. So if we go to impact analysis, we can actually see and validate that, right? I'm only part of a single BIA. But what we're also seeing is that these tiles, the report tiles essentially, aren't showing the correct counts. But there is an easy fix for that, and I'll show you how. So back on the platform side, we're going to want to go to the impact analysis. So again, you have to be a system admin. Not to get to that menu, but to do what I'm trying to do here, or BCM admin. We're going to go to business rules. We're going to go to, I'll show you the exact rule. It's BIA view access. So this is an out-of-box business rule. We'll click into that. And then really the meat and potatoes of everything is in this script include. So I just did a little right click on the name, open definition. And so this is the piece that needs to be updated. So this is an override of a function that's extended from this script include or class. I call them classes in my mind because that's what they are. So we're overriding it with our own updated version. And so whenever the system calls this function called canReadQuery, we're actually excluding this piece from the logic. This is the old logic, and this is the old one, and this is the new one. And again, what's really nice is you don't have to code all this, right? This will be available for download and testing as needed. So now when we activate that, we'll back into here, and here we go. You'll see in real time that the tiles are showing the correct counts and that we still have the same security access. Great. So now that we have everything set up, now we know that we can import it into our instance and test it out. I always recommend testing out things extensively using the automated test framework or just your own sort of test steps that you manually write and execute on. But you'll have an update set available for download called BCM Pros, restrict BIAs to only users. And if you're not familiar with this, you'll have to be a system admin. But the easiest way to do this is go type in retrieved from the menu, right? And then go to retrieved update sets. And typically there's a whole bunch of update sets you'll see here. But go all the way to the bottom and you'll see this related link called import update set from XML. And then you click the file that you downloaded and put it in here and do upload. And then you preview and then commit. So there's a lot of good documentation on that. If you need details on how to commit and update that, I will point you in the right direction. That's all I wanted to show you today. Hopefully that was helpful. If you got any value from that at all, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever the internet things are. And let me know if you have any ideas for things that you've been looking for that you haven't been able to figure out yet or you just want some help with. I love doing this kind of content, so keep me posted. Talk soon.